Hey guys, welcome back to another week where we talk about all things real estate related, specifically what's going on in the Ottawa real estate market. These videos are to help answer questions that we get as real estate agents that you guys want to know about. So we figured this week we'd go through what it is that we get asked most often from buyers and sellers and advice that we have for them. So to do this video, I invited special guest here, Dean Marjanovic, a colleague of mine, to help go through and answer some of these questions. Hey Dean, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So I guess to start off, for a buyer looking to get into this market, what would be the first advice you have for them?
Yeah, so first step would be to get a pre-approval from either the bank or a mortgage broker that you're using. The benefits of this is, why get pre-approved is because right now rates have been going up over the year. So basically getting pre-approved now makes sure, locks you into 120 days of what you're going to be secured for. Now, if the rates do end up going up, which they're probably going to be going up after September 5th, which is the next scheduled interest rate hike, you're locked in for 120 days with yesterday's rates. And right now we're going in a downwards trend. So if rates go up again, prices might come down a little bit more, but you're going to have the rates from before, and put those two ingredients together, you're going to combine yourself with a great deal when you're looking at a home. So best part is there's no downside. It doesn't cost you anything to lock in. There's no obligation, and you don't even have to buy a house. But if you wanted to buy a house, you're in the perfect position of having a good rate and what the homes are selling for. You know exactly what it's going to come down to. Also, another thing too is if you have approvals and you've been shopping over the last year, and you have approvals from a few months back, 6 months or more, you might want to get that checked up again to see what your new approval is. Just as an example, I've been working with a guy for just under a year now. He was looking at homes at the peak, and before the peak, he had a certain approval. Now we went to check because he's getting back into finding the perfect home, and went to get pre-approved again, and now he's at 450 instead of the 550 that he was 6 months ago. So that's going to be a drastic change in lifestyle, maybe location, and maybe the style of home that he's looking for. So definitely getting a pre-approval is a must-have in today's market.
Yeah, I know that's the biggest thing for me. That I've seen is that people are so focused on the actual prices, right?
Yeah.
And now that the prices are coming down, they're going to buy, and they're realizing that they were actually approved at much higher values, and they were better off, even buying at the higher price with the lower rate.
Yeah.
So what's the next thing when someone gets pre-approved? Like, what is the next thing?
So the next thing after you're pre-approved, I'd always recommend finding an agent to represent you, on the buy side. You can do that by, there's often, if you're using a mortgage broker, they'll have somebody that they can refer that they've done business with before and that they trust. Or, you can shop around for agents to find the agent that knows the market the best in your particular area. The benefits of this is that, oftentimes, the regular consumer thinks that just going with a listing agent is the best route, but couldn't be farther from the truth, because the listing agent actually represents the seller and the seller's best interest. And what's in the seller's best interest? To sell the house at the highest price with the least amount of time. So as a buyer, those aren't your best interests. Your best interests are to get the best deal and to make sure the house is sound and it's the best house for you, right?
Yeah, and I know, for example, we see numbers down across the board, and every once in a while I'll see a high sale, and I'll look and I'll see the listing agent double-ended it. And it's often because they're, showing this unrepresented buyer the value that's there based on comps, that have sold back in the peak, when really, if they had an agent representing them, they'd be showing them that the home values have actually gone down significantly.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, right? Like if I'm working with buyers, I want to give them reasons why not to buy these homes that they think are nice, right? Like I want to show them, like, okay, well, these last homes sold for this, this, and this. And this one's listed 10 grand above those, so it's definitely overpriced, or whatever the case is, right? This is just a basic example, but having somebody that's working for your best interest is great. And the best part about having an agent to help you buy a home is that it's free. The commissions are all paid out by the seller, so there's nothing, you're not missing out on anything by using a buyer's agent. You're actually getting more and more benefit, and at the same time, they're going to give you non-biased comparables, like you mentioned, right? So.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so once they're pre-approved, they have someone representing them, they found out the value of the property, what would be the next step in making an offer?
So perfect. Next step is make an offer. The best part about being in today's market is that you actually get to do your due diligence. You can put a home inspection clause. You can put a finance condition clause in there, or a condition, right? So even though you are pre-approved, you want to check with your mortgage broker or your mortgage agent at the bank to see, do we need a few days to make sure that this thing goes through? And then also doing your due diligence, right? So if you're not comfortable with the home, in this market, you don't have to just go in with a firm offer. You can put in a home inspection condition and make sure that the house does check out, right? Again, there's a lot of listings that might have a pre-listing inspection, right? Or a pre-inspection on the listing.
Yeah, no, I think that one is really important to talk about, because I see a lot of horror stories coming out from people who have bought in the heat of the market without doing their own home inspection, maybe even trusting pre-inspections.
Yep. And just today, CBC came out with a horror story itself, right? Like, there was a lady that bought a home from an unregulated auction. I'm not going to say the company's name, but they had a pre-inspection done on the home where they were holding on offers, and there was tons of offers. The home ended up selling for $250K over asking. The homeowner is now in the hole for $100K because she trusted the home inspection that said everything was sound, everything was perfect, and in fact it had mold, fire damage, and amongst other things, right? That she's on the hook for $100K now. So complete different market, and that's where you want to do your due diligence now, and that's where that comes in, and doing a proper inspection on the home.
Yeah, no, I think this is important to talk about too, because on my perspective, we see a lot of these buyers that were fighting for homes just a few months ago, right? And now that they actually have the opportunity to protect themselves, they're kind of backing away from the market,
Yeah.
and the prices have come down where they're in a good position, but they're still holding off. And so, what would you say to a buyer, if they're asking, is now the right time, or should they buy a home?
Yeah, when is a good time to buy? Yesterday.
Yeah.
That's. But it always depends on the buyer's goal, right? Like if you're looking, I think it's always a good time to buy, as long as you're willing to sit in it and live in the house, right? Like if you're buying today and your plan is not to upgrade your home for another 5 years, you're still going to be in equity in those 5 years, most of the time. It's a unique opportunity right now, just because there is literally no competition on the market. So for buyers out there that if you're not sure what's going to happen with the market, I say test it out, because we're getting offers done here. Like some of them, just last week I did one. The listing was listed at $600K, then they dropped the price after 30 days by $50K to $550. We ended up closing a deal at $520, and these houses were selling for $650 in March. So it's like my buyer potentially, by waiting a few months, saved $130K. Is the market going to go down another, what is that, 10-15%? Mm-hmm. Who knows, right? Like, we're not here to predict the future, but if you see an opportunity, maybe jump on it. It might be worth your while.
Yeah, I mean, I like to give a little bit of prediction. So yeah. I think for me, when I'm looking at that and I see someone waiting to time the market, right? And yes, we know that home prices are coming down, but we also know that interest rates are 100% coming up, right? Yeah. And so I think a lot of people need to take a look at, what is the purchase price? Yeah, it's important, but it's really all about the monthly payments.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So if they can get in a house today that they like for monthly payments that they can afford, they're always going to see the market come back and get out of renting, right? And start paying into their own equity, right? Yeah.
And what's rent?
Yeah, it's 100% interest, right?
Exactly. So you're not making any money by renting. And I mean, it all depends on your lifestyle, right? If the monthly payment makes sense, why not build your family's equity?
Yeah, and I know this might seem kind of salesy as us being real estate agents telling people to buy a home, but I would say that it is kind of the right advice to give, because even though we're talking about the average price of a home coming down 15% in the market, we're also seeing where there isn't much competition right now, like you're saying, and you're actually able to get way below market value today, yeah. Right? In which case, even if the market comes down a little bit, they're jumping and they're getting a good deal. I think a lot of people are looking one way, and this is an opportunity for the right buyers to get in there, yeah. And take advantage of that.
Yeah, 100%. Now, talked about buyers a lot. What do you think about selling a home in today's market?
So yeah, I think, there is a huge opportunity for buyers right now. It is a little bit different on the seller side. Things have changed a lot, and there's definitely a little bit of a learning curve for most of these sellers out there. But I'll start with the positive. I think, it was very difficult to price a home back in January, February, March. because there wasn't comparables and everything was selling so much higher than we'd seen it before.
Yeah.
Now we're in a bit of a better sequence where the market is a bit leveled out. There's a bit more comparables. So as much as it's not what sellers want to hear, the prices are not what they were months ago, it is a little bit easier to predict. So if we take a look at the average sale price by week over the last 2 years, we can see a little bit of what I'm talking about. To simplify things, let's take a look at the residential and the condo market together, the average price by week. So green being this year, and you can see what I was talking about a little bit, where in the beginning of the year, February, March, April, you see that the average price is in the 700s, right? Whereas now you take a look and the average price is sitting in the high 500s, around that 600 mark, right? And if we take a look at the average price over most of 2021, you see that it's hovering around that mark. So the value range that it gives us is pretty much that. So now we can take a look at, what homes we're selling for, even this time last year, last spring, last fall. And it's going to give us more data on how to appropriately price homes.
So market aside, if a seller is looking to get their house ready for sale, what's the next steps that they should be doing?
So again, the biggest thing is that you have a lot more competition than you had in the past, right? So how do you stand out compared to the other homes? So the biggest thing I would say is what we call deferred maintenance. So it's all like the marks on the walls and little scuffs here that you don't even see anymore. Fix those up, because that's obviously the cheapest way and the most efficient way to make your home look nicer, right? Make sure that as a buyer comes in that they're not going to be seeing negative things like that. The next thing I'd say is curb appeal. I think a lot of people don't think about curb appeal as much, but I know that there's a certain term in human psychology that's eluding me right now, but it basically says that, whatever impression that we make in the beginning, we find ways to justify that. So if we pull up to a house and right away, the paint is chipping on the door and stuff like that, we don't like the house, we're going to walk around the rest of the time finding reasons why we don't like that house. Whereas if we pull up and the grass is perfectly mowed and everything looks amazing, then we're going to have an impression of like, oh, I like this house. And we're going to go through the house the rest of the time finding reasons why we like the house.
Yeah.
So that'd be the first thing. And then, it gets into staging the property, right? Even the lighting. The lighting is really important. Want to make sure that the house is shown in the best light, no pun intended. But, staging it to make sure that it looks nice, and even some easy things to do is just making the house seem less cluttered, right? And more spacious. It's going to give it more room feel, right? Another thing too that people can do simply is remove personal effects, right?
Yep.
When you come through the home and a buyer wants to feel like they feel at home, like this could be their home. They don't want to feel like they're intruding your home, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, so like what would you, like family portraits and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, you get rid of all that stuff.
Okay.
I kind of tell people we want the house to look like an Airbnb. We want it to set up like someone can live there, but not make it look like someone does live there.
Yeah, okay, good point.
Right? And then obviously the next step is marketing, because you can get the house looking as good as it possibly can, but if no one sees the house, then no one's going to buy it. In the days of putting a for sale sign in the yard and putting it on an MLS, maybe making a Facebook marketplace and Kijiji ad, that's not going to get your home sold today. You need to find an agent who has the marketing pull necessary to stand out.
And what do you mean by that marketing pull? Like, what does that entail?
The world has gone pretty digital, right? And if you are online on any website, you understand a little bit about remarketing, right? So if you're on Amazon looking at couches, next thing you're on, ottawacitizen.com and you're seeing ads for couches, right? So that's what we do. We invest heavily in digital marketing companies who know what they're doing. So what we're doing is we're always running ads and we're taking a look at who is looking at what types of homes, and we're pixeling that information, right? And so that way we know exactly who is looking for homes in the city and what type of homes they're looking for. And what we do is we blast out our homes directly to those people, right? And that's through different digital advertising, video marketing. So, where a normal Facebook post is going to get maybe 200 views, on average, we're seeing about 200,000 views. So here is actually an example of data that's pulled from our website. What we can do is we can type in the exact property that someone has, and we pull in all the information and buyers that we have in our database that are looking for it. But here's to take a look at what our information pulls. So on average, we're getting over 200,000 views for our social media ads. Right now, we have 1,100 active home buyers on our website. and we're targeting 1,100 active buyers with our Facebook ads every day, and we're spending over $1,000 on our marketing on our listings right now. And another view, for example, is we typed in, like I said, the person's address into this property, the type of property they have. They have a 2-bed, 2-bathroom, and the area that it's in. And so it actually matches that we have 239 people looking for a property like that in the area. It tags the homes in the area they're looking at, and it even blocks out their information but shows what they're looking for. So the first thing that we can do is, before we ever list on MLS, we blast out the database and see if we have that buyer for that seller, right?
Okay, so far we covered the the pricing of the home, the marketing, what the game plan is. What's next after that for the seller?
Again, well, this comes into choosing the right real estate agent, right? Which would be pricing the home correctly first, then marketing it correctly. Then the last thing is going to be one who knows the whole market like this and is confident and able to guide you through this crazy market, right? So a lot of the thing too is we see some homes that are sitting on the market overpriced that are never going to sell, right? But we see the exact opposite too. We see some homes that are selling for way undervalued because they've been listed for a couple weeks. They only get one offer. It's a lowball offer, and the sellers panic and take it, right?
Yep.
So I think the last thing to do is make sure that you're confident in your marketing and your value, and you're able to hold tight. Homes aren't going to sell in a week, in 2 weeks necessarily anymore. But if you price it right, you market it right, you don't have to take the lowball offer that comes in the first month. We could be up for 2 months to get that right buyer. Yeah. But it's having someone who's able to confidently negotiate on your behalf and be able to hold your hand and make sure you don't make a panic decision.
Exactly, and I think a lot of people have short-term memory loss. Obviously these last 2 years have been very, very weird. Sellers, you're putting a sign on the ground, 5 days later it's sold. Buyers, you're getting outbid. But what was the market like before that? I wasn't even an agent before that whole thing happened with COVID. So obviously before that we're back to the kind of the same similar traditional market.
That's the biggest thing that I'm dealing with the sellers, because some of them are panicking and just saying, "What are we doing? We're not getting showings." I'm like, this is normal. Yeah. We're reaching a more normal market right now, and that is something that you just have to expect, right? And as long as you're paying attention to what's going on and you're very aware of the market and you're doing the proper marketing, you will get top dollar. It might not take it might take more than a week or two, but it will happen. And it's just being confident and knowing the numbers and following it, and not just basing it off of over promising on past numbers, but also too not praying into the fear either, and thinking that the market's going to crash, because it's not. We're still seeing it's coming down. There's no question about it. But there's a whole level of people who want to buy, and we're seeing the rental market pop off right now too, right? And the rentals are going so high. So at what point do people stop paying these high rents and jump back into the market?
That's exactly it. Just such a complete different balance, right? Like there's never a perfect market for anybody. It's always tough to buy a house. It's always been tough to buy a house, and it's never been, the only time it was easy to really sell a house was the last 2 years where there was a shortage and everybody was all over the place, and the world was a completely different place. So I think we're going back to some more normal things now, and I think as long as buyers and sellers are confident going into the decision and they're comfortable with the decision they're making, I think they'll be in for some good memories in their new homes.
For sure. I mean, we can talk about this all day, but I'd say if anyone has any questions, to reach out directly to you. How could people get a hold of you?
So you can call me at 613-863-0873, or just follow me on Instagram at the 613 Realtor, and that's it. Just DM me there.
Thanks a lot for coming by, Dean.
No worries. Take care, guys.